Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Think about Blockbuster for a second.
Right, dominant, weren't they? Huge revenues.
Billions. And then along comes Netflix, this tiny, DVDs by mail outfit, no late fees.
And Blockbuster's CEO, he had the chance to buy them, right? For almost nothing.
Yeah, 50 million. Peanuts, really, but he passed.
He believed in the stores, the late fees. It's a classic story.
Exactly. And, well, fast forward, Blockbuster's gone. The failure wasn't about money.
No, it was a failure of strategic imagination, wasn't it? A massive blind spot.
That's it, a blind spot that maybe, just maybe, AI can help leaders like you avoid today.
And it's not like leaders don't know strategy is important. That Harvard survey.
Oh yeah, get this. 97% of senior leaders say strategic thinking is crucial. 97%.
So what's the disconnect? Why is it so hard to do effectively?
Oh, that's part of it, isn't it? The daily grind.
Absolutely. The sources really point this out. You've got packed calendars, operational fires to put out, just a constant flood of information.
Right. It's that feeling of being incredibly busy, running flat out.
But not actually getting anywhere on the big, important stuff.
Yeah.
The long-term goals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Constantly fighting fires. But are you actually building the fire station, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us neatly to what we're diving into today. This idea of the AI-driven leader.
Right. The concept isn't AI taking over.
No, not at all. It's AI as a thought partner.
Yeah, a tool to help cut through all that noise, challenge your own thinking, your biases.
And free up that mental bandwidth you need for the real long-term vision.
That's the mission for this deep dive, really. Exploring how that actually works, using insights and real examples from the sources.
Okay, so strategic thinking. The sources define it pretty clearly.
Yeah, it's fundamentally about making sure your actions today line up with those big, ambitious long-term goals.
It's the foundation, right. The difference between just managing day-to-day and actually leading towards a future.
But, as we said, the modern workplace throws up so many roadblocks.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Those packed calendars, constant distractions. It's a recipe for feeling swamped.
Incredibly busy, but maybe not making progress on what really matters strategically.
And I think everyone listening can relate to that feeling, right? Ending the day wiped out, but wondering, what did I really move forward?
Definitely.
So we get the challenges. Now let's talk solutions. How can AI, as this thought partner, actually help?
Well, it's not about, handing over your brain.
Right.
It's more like having a really smart assistant that helps you filter information. And crucially, it challenges you.
Challenges your biases,
Yeah.
the ones that lead to those blockbuster moments.
Exactly, the unconscious stuff that trips us up. The sources give a concrete example, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine you have your strategic plan. You could prompt AI, frame it as your AI thought partner,
Okay.
and ask it to hit you with questions, one by one. Questions designed specifically to poke holes in your assumptions, reveal hidden biases.
Like a built-in skeptic.
Sort of, yeah. It can even assess if your plan is, robust enough to actually achieve those long-term aims.
How does it do that? Just by processing data.
Pretty much. It chews through vast amounts of data, and it doesn't have our human emotional baggage or attachments, so it can offer genuinely fresh perspectives.
Leading to maybe more diverse, more solid decisions.
That's the idea. More robust decision-making.
Okay, this is where it gets really critical for leaders, I think. Because we all feel that pressure for short-term results.
Oh, absolutely. Quarterly targets, shareholder demands.
It's so easy to grab the quick win, even if it messes up the long-term plan. The sources mention Blockbuster again here, don't they?
They do. Carl Icahn pushing them to bring back late fees.
Right, for a quick catch injection.
But it completely undermined their ability to compete with Netflix and the whole streaming shift later on.
So how can AI help leaders caught in that bind? Balancing today's demands with tomorrow's goals.
Well, the sources suggest using it for scenario planning.
Okay, like wargaming different futures?
Exactly. Simulating possibilities to see how today's choices might play out down the line. It gives you a clearer picture.
Interesting. What else?
There's also this idea of doing virtual interviews with AI.
Interviewing the AI.
Kind of. You use it to test if your short-term actions are truly aligned with the long-term vision. It's a structured way to check yourself.
Making sure you're not just chasing shiny objects.
But actually building towards something sustainable.
And the pace of change just keeps accelerating, doesn't it?
Relentless. Which brings up that prediction from Eric Schmidt.
Yeah, the former Google CEO. What did he say? The world will be fundamentally different.
In 5 years. Not 10, 5.
Re-
Because of AI's evolution.
Wow. 5 years. That's basically tomorrow in strategic planning terms.
It really underscores the urgency, doesn't it? The sources argue that leaders need to get on board with AI now.
It's not just about keeping up anymore.
No, it's about creating a real competitive edge. If you don't harness it,
You risk being left behind. Seriously left behind. Okay, so just to be crystal clear for everyone listening, this deep dive, we're really focusing on leadership and strategy.
right, AI is the tool we're discussing, specifically how it enhances those areas.
We're not going to get lost in the weeds comparing specific AI platforms or digging into governance policies.
No, the tech changes way too fast for that. It would be outdated before we finish recording.
Exactly. The focus is the strategic application for leaders.
And central to that is a shift in mindset. The sources talk about this.
Yeah, the author's personal story.
Yeah.
Shifting the daily question.
That's the one. Instead of asking, how might I do this?
Asking, how might AI help me do this?
It seems small, but they describe it creating this flywheel effect.
A ripple effect.
Yeah. More awareness of AI's potential, which leads to using it more, which leads to better decisions. It builds momentum.
It's a simple switch, but potentially really powerful. And it reminds me, this isn't the first time technology has forced this kind of shift. History is full of examples.
Absolutely. The sources look back at things like the printing press.
Right. Before Gutenberg, knowledge was basically locked up. Monks, the elite.
Exactly. Then the press comes along, books get cheaper, information spreads like wildfire. Literacy explodes.
It fueled huge changes. The scientific revolution, the Enlightenment.
And you can see a parallel, can't you? Just like the press democratized information, AI is democratizing analytical power.
Leaders who grab onto that will have an advantage.
For sure. But it wasn't smooth sailing back then either. People were worried.
Scribes losing their jobs, the church losing control over information.
Yeah, there was real anxiety. But ultimately, the technology pushed society forward. Cities that embraced it thrived.
Then you jump forward to the assembly line.
Another massive shift. From skilled artisans making one whole thing
to mass production. Efficiency went through the roof. Cars became affordable.
It totally changed industry, where people lived, how they worked.
But again, anxieties, right? Job losses, the whole dehumanizing aspect of repetitive work.
Definitely. But while some jobs faded, whole new industries and roles popped up. It required adaptation. Different skills were needed.
It's that evolution of roles, not just mass extinction.
Precisely.
And then closer to our time, the internet.
Feels like yesterday, but it fundamentally rewired everything. Communication, information access, work.
Instant global connection. Massive economic shifts. New skills needed, digital literacy, creativity.
But the sources point out the downsides, too.
Oh, yeah. Information overload, misinformation, cybersecurity, maybe even feeling less connected personally, despite being more connected digitally.
It's always a double-edged sword, these powerful technologies. Huge opportunities, but new challenges to navigate.
And the parallel the sources draw to AI is pretty stark.
It is. The AI revolution will transform work. Roles will evolve. New skills will be crucial.
And resisting that change.
Yeah.
Well, we saw what happened to Blockbuster. Adapting is key.
Which brings us back to that leadership mindset. The sources make a great point, contrasting know-it-alls with learn-it-alls.
Ah, the Satya Nadella example at Microsoft.
Exactly. He fostered a growth mindset, a learning culture. And look at the strategic bets they made. LinkedIn, Azure, getting in early with OpenAI.
It shows how that learn-it-all approach can completely revitalize a company for a new era.
Yeah. The sources use a couple of nice analogies for the AI-driven leader.
The composer and the conductor.
That's it. The composer crafts the vision, the strategy.
And the conductor leads the orchestra, the teams, the technology to bring that vision to life.
And importantly, the conductor doesn't play every instrument, right?
That's fine.
They empower the musicians. Similarly, the AI-driven leader empowers their teams. They expect more thinking leverage from them.
So less telling people what to do, more guiding them to figure out how to achieve the strategy.
Precisely. Asking them to develop their own plans in alignment.
Okay, but we know change isn't easy. People resist. Why is that?
The sources touch on a few reasons. Psychologically, we like comfort, predictability. We fear the unknown.
Makes sense. And cognitive biases play a part too.
Oh, definitely. Things like the sunk cost fallacy. We've already invested so much in the old way. Or just status quo bias. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Even if it is kind of broken or about to be.
Right. And leadership itself is a huge factor. You need strong leaders championing the change, explaining the why.
Building that buy-in, supporting people through the transition. Without that, things stall.
For sure. The sources even mention the different adopter types you see with any new tech.
Yeah, the curve. Innovators jump in first.
Then early adopters, the early majority, late majority, and finally the laggards who really resist.
As a leader, you need to understand you'll have all those groups in your team.
And you need a strategy for each. A key question leaders face is adopting AI going to be a standard, an expectation, or just a suggestion?
Big difference.
Huge. Clarity is essential. Explain the benefits, provide support, be transparent. It's about enhancing people, not replacing them.
So to help leaders visualize this journey, the sources lay out this AI empowerment curve.
Yeah, it maps the stages people go through. Starts with curiosity, maybe some skepticism.
Then you hit that light bulb moment.
Crucial stage. That's when you personally see AI solve a real problem or create real value for you. That's when the excitement kicks in.
Okay, what comes after the light bulb?
The reality check. This is where you start implementing and realize it's not always smooth. You have to learn how to prompt, effectively iterate.
It takes effort.
It does, but then you start building momentum, getting better at it. Then acceleration, where it becomes more integrated.
And finally,
expanding what's possible. You start seeing totally new ways to apply AI you hadn't imagined before.
and the sources give a prompt to help people find that light bulb moment, right?
They do. Think of one thing this week where you could use a thought partner. Frame that challenge for AI. Ask it to act as that partner. Ask you questions. See what happens.
Just try it out on a real current problem.
Exactly. And about that reality check stage, it's important not to get discouraged if the first try isn't perfect.
It's a learning process like any new skill.
Right. You refine your prompts, learn how the AI thinks. Persistence is key.
Okay, let's maybe pull back the curtain a tiny bit on how AI works. Keep it simple.
Sure. The basic flow the sources mention is input goes in.
What you type into the box.
Right. AI processes it based on its training, and output comes out.
The answer, the text, the image.
And then ideally there's a learning loop based on feedback, so it gets better.
Got it. And they mentioned tokens.
Yeah, tokens are like the basic units of data. AI processes words or parts of words. Understanding tokens helps you gauge how much data you're feeding in, which relates to cost and efficiency.
Good to know. But the big caveat.
The crucial thing, AI is a prediction machine. It predicts the next word, the next pixel. It's not an oracle. It doesn't know things in the human sense.
And it can get things wrong. Hallucinate.
Exactly. It can generate plausible sounding but incorrect or completely made up information, like a GPS leading you into a lake.
Okay, maybe not that bad, but the point is,
Human oversight is non-negotiable. You, the leader, are the thought leader. AI is the thought partner. You need to check its...
with AI too, the sources use that nesting doll analogy.
Yeah, it's helpful. The biggest doll is just artificial intelligence, AI, the broad umbrella term.
Okay, inside that,
Machine learning, ML. That's about training models on data to find patterns and make predictions. Think Netflix recommending shows you might like.
because you watch similar stuff. Makes sense. What's inside ML?
Deep learning. This uses more complex structures called neural networks, often good for unstructured data like images or language. Your phone's Face ID uses this.
Okay, getting more sophisticated. And the smallest doll.
Generative AI. This is the type that's exploded recently. It creates new content, text, images, code based on the patterns it learned. Think ChatGPT or Midjourney.
So it's not just analyzing, it's generating stuff.
Exactly, which opens up amazing possibilities for brainstorming, prototyping, content creation.
With all this power comes responsibility.
Right. Absolutely. The sources flag key things to keep in mind. Data privacy. What are you feeding into these models? Bias in the training data leading to biased outputs. Those hallucinations we mentioned.
And importantly,
Not letting it replace genuine human connection and collaboration. It's a tool for humans, not a replacement of humans.
let's ground this in a real example. The sources talk about Bayer, Indonesia.
Right, a great case study. Florian, the CFO, had a challenge. Reorganization meant managers needed new skills, particularly strategic thinking and decision-making.
You needed an upskilling program.
Yeah, he had an initial idea, but he was curious. How might AI help me?
There's that question again. So what did he do?
He used a specific prompt, laying out the context, the reorg, the skills gap, his initial idea. He asked AI for alternatives and for benchmarks, examples of successful AI-driven training.
And what happened? Light bulb moment.
Big time. AI instantly gave him feedback where it could help with curriculum development, where it couldn't. It suggested alternatives, cited use cases.
So it didn't just write the course.
No, it helped him think about the course design better. Florian realized they should create the content internally with AI, but crucially, with human oversight and validation.
And AI played another role too, the challenger.
Yes. He prompted it to challenge the plan, asking things like, how will you ensure this translates to measurable improvements? It pushed his thinking.
That's a fantastic example of AI as a true thought partner.
Definitely. It solidified Florian's belief in its potential.
Okay, so building on that, the sources outline 5 immediate ways leaders like you can use AI. First up, strategic thinking.
Right, and within that, AI can wear different hats. It can be the interviewer, drawing out your thoughts.
Like a coach.
Sort of. Or the communicator, helping you structure and articulate your ideas clearly. And, as we saw with Florian, the challenger.
That challenger role seems incredibly useful. How would you actually use that day to day?
Imagine you've got a big board presentation coming up. Before you go in, you could feed the key points to AI and say, act like a skeptical board member. Poke holes in this.
Pressure test it beforehand.
Exactly. The sources even give sample challenger questions AI might ask, forcing you to find the weak spots before someone else does.
Okay, use case number 2.
Decision-making. Making better choices faster.
And avoiding costly mistakes. The sources mention Keith Cunningham.
Yeah, losing $100 million because he didn't ask the right questions up front. It highlights the need for real thinking time and for tackling our biases.
Which biases do they call out?
Several common ones. Narrowing perspectives, only seeing one option, reinforcing the status quo, sticking with what's familiar. The sunk cost fallacy.
Yes, throwing good money after bad.
Exactly. And they use Ron Johnson's time at JCPenney as a cautionary tale. Big assumptions, not enough testing, disastrous results.
So how do you fight these biases? AI can help.
It can be part of the solution. Seeking diverse human opinions is key, but AI can also analyze data objectively. Maybe spot patterns or insights we miss because of our biases.
There's that example of the executive meeting with the Whole Foods CEO, Jason Buchel.
Right. They wanted to understand what mattered most to Buchel in a potential partner.
So they asked AI.
Yep. Prompted it to research him. AI came back with 6 key priorities, backed up with links.
Wow.
Then what? Then the exec prompted AI to act as Jason Buchel and review their pitch deck against those priorities.
Seriously, role-playing as the CEO.
Yeah. And AI found gaps, pointed out they hadn't addressed ethical sourcing and fair trade enough, suggested specific changes, even where to put them in the deck.
Oh, no, how long?
Under 15 minutes, apparently. That's powerful preparation.
Incredible. What other decision-making roles can AI play?
It can be a devil's advocate, systematically generating counterarguments to stress test your strategy.
Okay.
And it's great for premortems and postmortems.
Explain those.
Premortem is before you launch something, you ask, imagine this failed spectacularly. Why did it fail? AI can help brainstorm potential failure points.
Proactive risk assessment.
Exactly. Postmortem is looking back after an event's success or failure and analyzing what happened and why. AI can help structure that analysis.
There was another example with an activist board.
Yeah, a high-growth company used AI to analyze transcripts of board meetings to understand the personalities and likely objections of specific activist members.
So they could anticipate the tough questions.
And prepare thoughtful responses. It helped the executive team get ready, and that led to Brian's key question for the CEO.
Remind me.
What are the most important things we need to accomplish in the first 90 days to drive progress toward our most critical goals while earning the board's trust? A really focused, strategic question.
Which highlights the importance of asking great questions, whether you're asking humans or AI.
Absolutely. The sources contrast great questions focused, clear, stimulating deeper thought, with poor ones that are too vague or too narrow.
There's that anecdote about Gary Keller and Tim Sharp.
Yeah, Sharp using AI to analyze thousands of TripAdvisor reviews for Disney in minutes, pulling out key themes about customer experience, shows the power of asking the right analytical question.
Okay, so we've had strategic thinking, decision-making. What's next?
Well, content creation and idea generation are kind of woven into the others, but the 5th specific use case mentioned is analysis.
Like the Disney review example.
Exactly. And the sources share Tim O'Sullivan's story from Boundless AI.
What did he do?
Condensed what would normally be 6 months of branding strategy work for a biotech client into 2 weeks.
6 months to 2 weeks. How?
Using AI for the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Initial research, competitive analysis, SWOT analysis, even drafting initial copy.
With human oversight, presumably?
Oh, absolutely. Human validation and refinement were key. But the speed and efficiency gain was massive, turning data into actionable strategy incredibly fast.
Okay, so AI can really accelerate things, but let's go back to that tension. Short-term pressure versus long-term growth. How do you manage that?
The Blockbuster story looms large here again, right? Short-term thinking can be fatal.
And that McKinsey stat's pretty damning. 63% of execs admit delaying long-term projects because they're scared of missing quarterly numbers.
It's the tyranny of the urgent. It constantly threatens to derail strategic priorities.
So what's the answer? How do leaders balance it?
The sources stress the need for active balancing. It's not automatic. You need to align incentives reward long-term value creation, not just short-term wins.
Make people accountable for strategic goals, not just quarterly targets.
Exactly. And foster a culture that values both execution today and building for tomorrow.
The sources list 5 characteristics of a strategic mindset needed for this.
Right. Have a clear vision. Prioritize, ruthlessly say no to things. Think critically and act on data. Be adaptable and embrace change.
And that includes asking that tough Gary Keller question.
What's the business that will put us out of business, and how can we build it first? Constantly challenging your own model.
That takes courage.
It does. To help structure this, the sources offer a strategic decision-making framework.
7 steps.
Yeah. Clarify objective. Map stakeholders. Gather and analyze info. Identify solutions. Evaluate risks. Decide and plan. Deliver results.
A logical flow. And AI can help throughout.
Potentially, yes. For example, in mapping stakeholders, AI can interview you with targeted questions to make sure you haven't missed anyone crucial who needs to be involved or informed.
Okay, so framework helps. What about maintaining strategic clarity day-to-day, year-round?
Crucial. The sources share Wyatt Graves' story.
The real estate investor.
Yeah, he used AI to challenge his focus on flipping houses. It helped him see the potential in multifamily properties, leading to a $1 million deal. It expanded his vision.
It stopped him thinking too small.
Exactly, which is one of the common pitfalls the sources identify, not thinking big enough. Also, losing sight of the big picture in the daily grind and lack of regular strategic review.
So the solutions.
Expand your vision, use your goal as a compass, and implement regular, likely quarterly strategic reviews.
What should those reviews cover?
The sources suggest focusing on 4 key areas. Strategy. Are we still on track? Execution. Are we getting it done?
Yeah.
People. Do we have the right team? And technology. Are we leveraging tools like AI effectively?
Yeah.
Ask probing questions in each area.
Let's keep it high level, right? Not just tactical weeds.
Absolutely. Focus on the big strategic questions.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. How can leaders use AI to, as the sources put it, 10x the impact of every employee? Sounds ambitious.
It is, but the idea builds on concepts like Google's 20% time. Focus people on what matters most.
So 4 elements to this.
Yeah. First, really nail down the vital 20% of tasks for each role, the ones that drive 80% of the value.
The core priorities.
Right. Second, supercharge work on those priorities with AI. Third, streamline or automate as much of the other 80%, the lower value stuff as possible.
Get rid of the busy work.
Exactly. And fourth, establish new, higher performance standards now that people have these powerful tools and more.
Identifying that 20% is key.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
The sources provide a prompt specifically for that, helping you analyze your own work or a team member's role to pinpoint those high-leverage activities.
And empowering employees means guiding them through that AI empowerment curve we talked about.
Yes. Don't just throw AI at them. Support them through the light bulb moment, the reality check, and beyond. Manage expectations.
What about streamlining the 80%? Any frameworks?
They mention Elon Musk's 5 steps for process improvement.
Okay, what are they?
Question every requirement. Is this step really necessary? Delete unnecessary parts or processes. Simplify and optimize what's left. Accelerate the process. Then finally, automate it.
So automate last, after you've cleaned house.
Makes sense, right? Don't automate waste.
Good point. And how do leaders increase that thinking leverage in their teams?
3 main ways suggested. 1, ask more, give less. Instead of solving problems for them, ask questions that guide them to the solution.
Teach them to think.
Exactly. 2, explain the why. Help them understand the strategic context behind decisions and tasks.
Connects their work to the bigger picture.
Right. And 3, model strategic thinking yourself. Show, don't just tell. Let them see how you approach problems strategically.
Okay, so you've decided to bring AI in. How do you manage that change effectively? Avoid resistance.
The sources use Domino's Pizza's turnaround as a great example.
Really? Domino's?
Yeah, they were struggling, admitted their product wasn't great, then completely reinvented themselves through strong leadership, embracing digital technology, and focusing intensely on the customer experience. It shows transformation is possible.
So what's the framework for integrating AI based on that?
A four-step approach. First, identify a high-impact, low-risk use case to start with. Something where AI can deliver clear value without huge implementation risks.
Test the waters.
Right. Ask evaluation questions. Is it important? Is it feasible? Can we measure success? Second, map your stakeholders. Who needs to be involved, informed, convinced, understand their perspectives?
Get the right people on board. Third,
Co-author solutions. Work with the people whose jobs will be affected or who need to support the change. Don't just impose it.
build ownership.
Exactly. And fourth, celebrate early wins. Publicize successes, however small, to build momentum and enthusiasm.
Create those light bulb moments for others.
One light bulb moment at a time, exactly. And crucially, validate concerns. If people are worried about AI, listen, understand, and address their fears honestly. Build trust.
Okay, so getting started, going from zero to actually getting value seems daunting.
It can feel that way. Remember that stat. So few leaders are actively implementing AI strategically yet.
Right.
The sources introduce the AI empowerment flywheel here as a simple path.
How do you get work?
It starts with that simple question: how might AI help me with this? That sparks awareness. Awareness leads to action, trying it out. Action improves your communication quality with AI as you learn.
Better prompts, better results.
Exactly. Better communication leads to better results quality. And seeing those better results reinforces the habit of asking, how might AI help? Spinning the flywheel faster.
It's about building a new habit.
Fundamentally, yes. Driving change with AI is about shifting habits, yours and your team's. Like the Domino's example, it takes effort, but the impact can be huge.
Finally, the sources touch on something quite profound: identity.
Yeah, the idea that many of us define ourselves by our profession, what we do.
And with AI potentially changing what we do.
It can trigger a fear of identity loss. If AI does my job, who am I?
That's deep. What's the insight there?
The author shares a personal realization. You are you, not what you do. Your core identity is separate from your job title.
So it's about anchoring yourself in your values, your purpose.
And seeing AI not as a threat to your identity, but as a tool that allows you to align your actions even more closely with who you want to be as a leader, sure, but also as a partner, a parent, a person.
Focusing on who can you become in this new era.
Exactly. A powerful question to ponder.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive?
I think it's that AI isn't just some futuristic tech trend. It's here now, and it's a seriously powerful tool for leaders to think more strategically, make better decisions, navigate complexity, and ultimately drive growth.
But it requires that mindset shift we talked about, seeing AI as a collaborator, a thought partner.
Absolutely. And consciously balancing that long-term vision with the short-term demands, using AI to help bridge that gap.
So the challenge to everyone listening:
take that first step. Don't wait. Ask yourself, maybe even right now, how might AI help me with my biggest challenge or opportunity this week?
just try it. And if you want more guidance, more resources, or access to that AI thought partner trained on all this material,
head over to aleadership.com.
great resource. And maybe a final thought to leave people with.
Perhaps this: the future of your leadership isn't really about fighting or resisting technological change. It's about consciously deciding and defining who you will become in a world increasingly empowered by AI. What will that look like for you?